All right, well, it's time now for all the day's business news, and for that I'm joined in the studio by Stephen Carroll. Hi, Stephen.
Hi, Molly.
All right, well, you're going to now walk us through an emergency meeting that we saw this last night over Greece's debt crisis.
Yeah, that's right. There are now just 4 days before Greece's next repayment to the International Monetary Fund is due. It's €300 million, and we still don't know if Greece will be able to pay it. Now, IMF Chief Christine Lagarde and the President of the European Central Bank, Mario Draghi, joined the last-minute talks in Berlin last night, along with François Hollande, Angela Merkel and the head of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker. Now, the only official statement from that meeting said the five had agreed to work together intensely in the coming days. The Financial Times, though, is reporting that differences remain on budget deficit targets, pensions and labour market reform. With the Greek government, an agreement on reforms is needed to release the last €7.2 billion of Greece's bailout loans. Without that money, it's certain to default on payments to the IMF this month.
Well, that being said, what impact has this had on markets?
Not so much on the Asian markets today and what we're seeing in trading today. The Asian markets are trading down, but that's more to do with a focus on the United States. A strong value of the dollar means higher commodity prices for consumers in Asia, and that's hurting things on the markets. It's worth pointing out we saw big gains on the Shanghai Composite yesterday, so it's falling back slightly from that position there, but it was up nearly 5% at the end of trading yesterday, so really is coming down only very slightly from that position.
Well, Stephen, let's turn our attention to here in France, where we've got really some very bad figures on the jobs front.
Yeah, the monthly figures from the Labour Ministry show the number of people out of work in France rose in April to a new record high. There are now 3.5 million people out of work here, up 600,000 since President François Hollande came to power 3 years ago. Elliot Richardson has more.
Unemployment figures have risen once again in France, but the figures in April set a record high. The number of people out of work increased by over 26,000 compared to the previous month, a rise of 0.7%. That brought the total of the unemployed up to a record 3,536,000, an increase of 5.1%. The Labour Minister says the economy is growing, but the 0.6% first quarter growth in the Eurozone's second largest economy hasn't yet borne any fruit.
There is a big gap between the economic growth and the direct impact it has on employment. The first effect is that more short-term contracts are being signed.
But workers' unions were a lot less optimistic.
It's a very bad number. It means that the recovery is not there. From an economic point of view, growth is still too weak. That's due to external factors and because the government's policy is not able to boost economic activity in order to lower employment.
60% of employers are afraid to hire because the process is not simple and not flexible. We have to bet on our future. We have to make sure that orders keep coming in, and for that we need flexibility.
Overall, if you add part-time workers to the list, there are over 5,340,000 people who are looking for regular work in France.
Let's take a look now at some of the day's other business headlines. Staff at the troubled French nuclear giant Areva are staging a 24-hour strike today over plans to restructure the company. Management announced up to 4,000 job cuts last month after seeing record losses of up to €5 billion. Last year, President Hollande is to meet ministers tomorrow to discuss the company's future. The Japanese car parts manufacturer Takata is to change the design of the airbags at the centre of a global safety scandal. Defective airbag inflators are being blamed for at least 6 deaths and the biggest recall of vehicles in US history. Some 53 million cars are thought to be affected globally. And reports say that Apple is preparing to launch a streaming music service to rival Spotify. The Wall Street Journal says the announcement will be made at the company's developers conference next week. Apple currently sells more than 80% of downloaded music via its iTunes store and is said to be preparing to offer a streaming service for $10 a month.
All right, Stephen, we're going to wrap up actually now with a story out of the United States. This is where a Muslim woman, she has won her case against the American clothing giant Abercrombie & Fitch. Tell us more.
Yeah, Abercrombie had refused to hire Samantha Ilof back in 2008 because she wears a headscarf. Now, the company said that her hijab violated their look policy for staff. She took her case all the way to the US Supreme Court and won. The court ruled that Abercrombie's decision violated the Civil Rights Act, which bans discrimination based on religious belief and practices. Now, it's not the first time that Abercrombie has lost a case over its policy on headscarves. Back in 2013, it paid more than $70,000 to two women who said they were targeted by management over wearing hijabs at work. The clothing chain has since reversed its policy on headscarves. But of course, this fits into other criticism we've seen of Abercrombie's hiring policies and the various criteria they use for hiring people. But Samantha Eloff winning her case there after a long legal battle.
All right, indeed. Well, Stephen, thank you for that, walking us through the day's latest business news.